Hey there, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for
UnSpun.
I like that one.
First of all, I was UnSpun.
UnSpun. You're doing it different every time.
I try to.
We got to cut all those together at some point and just have a good giggle at the Christmas party. Oh my God, Christmas? No, it's May. I can't believe it's May, and I can't believe the expose, George, that Sam Cooper, one of the Canadian treasures in investigative journalism, I swear. I love
Yes, and I first met him at City Hall when he first started, and he was great at City Hall. I loved his work there. He exposed a lot of things at City Hall when I was there in Vancouver, and so his work, he's growing as a journalist, that's for sure.
No doubt. I don't know how he digs through the FOI documents that he gets his hands on, the Freedom of Information documents that if you work hard enough you can get your hands on, and then you muscle through and go through the redactions, like what he has unearthed now with regard to the money laundering situation in British Columbia and in Canada really, but here. He has a whistleblower who's
this
named.
Is somebody who came to him,
yes.
And she wouldn't show her face, but yeah, she named herself, and all this detailed information that she took 20 years ago.
Yeah, she was a casino manager. That's the thing that struck me. Every time somebody posted or retweeted Sam's story, I kept putting in 1997. 1997.
Where were you in 1997?
So in 1997, allegedly, this is from the whistleblower who was a casino manager at the Great Canadian Casino in Richmond.
Yep.
She was working there, and she remembers when the NDP government raised the maximum bid allowed in a casino from $25 to $500 and introduced baccarat.
That is a significant increase.
It is a significant. I remember when casinos in Vancouver, because I worked at 86th Street Music Hall as a waitress, and next door was the casino that opened.
I remember you serving me drinks.
I probably did. You were a very good tipper.
I don't know.
Was it? But I remember the casinos were kind of like going to Disneyland. Like it was sort of just kitschy that you'd go because it wasn't big serious gambling, and because it was $25. Yeah. Like that was the most you could do. So people would be
is my entire limit in gambling. If I go to a casino,
right.
$20 actually is all I'll spend.
That's and it goes a big bet for us, right?
Yeah. Well, I use the penny slots. So.
See, I'm more of a blackjack gal, and I play at the lower tables.
I'm intimidated by those tables. I don't go there.
I always mess it up. Don't hit on 17 people. Anyway, I digress. But the fact that that big change in 1997, when the NDP government was in power, clearly, because they raised that limit, that's when this woman, this whistleblower in Sam Cooper's story, said, like, almost immediately gang activity just ramped up in the casino.
Yes, and it's NDP government. What's interesting, I thought, one of the other pieces of information in Vancouver, gambling really expanded in 2002 under COPE, which became Vision. Before that, the NPA had been very opposed to gambling, as was Gordon Campbell, very opposed to gambling. He was very much against the expansion of gambling.
What was his argument against that?
He was worried. Well, he thought it was providing too much money going into it. I think it took it away from a sort of a fun exercise of a weekend with with your partner or whatever you do. To go into that kind of level is a different ball game and much more Vegas style, and creates a whole culture, obviously, that we've seen grow. But the Liberals, NDP, are now clearly, as we've learned, guilty of expanding it in the late 90s. And then civic governments took the opportunity to expand in there because they get to decide on the zoning.
Right.
And so Richmond with River Rock and Vancouver with its casinos and Kamloops and all these places that have casinos benefit from that. The cities get lots of money from revenue from gambling in their cities.
Right, there it is, the slice of the pie.
You start seeing these chunks of money, and then the Liberals got in around the early 2000s, and they didn't reverse it. They didn't take that $500 down to $25.
And we were all quite busy, the collective we, the taxpayer, all quite busy, sort of putting it on the Liberal government.
Lately, yes.
Well, because
recently,
the assumption was this was fairly recent, and Liberals were in power for long enough. The better part of
and this whole commission argument, they haven't been fighting for this idea, really.
Right.
Nobody's been fighting for this commission except for the public.
This peels back a whole new layer.
Yes.
And that it's not just one government's problem, it's our problem.
It's interesting. It's every level of government right now. So you've got certainly provincially and municipally, and both sides of the spectrum are guilty in some way or another. So everything is now pretty much because of Sam Cooper has been exposed as far as what how did we get here? How did we get into this
Well,
situation?
isn't that interesting? How did we get here being the question? And then Premier John Horgan is asked about Sam Cooper. Tell the story.
Well, he said, I haven't read the article. I mean, come on, bull.
Of course you did.
Even if you didn't read it, you heard.
You almost swore I did last week.
Yeah, well.
So go ahead.
Yes, no, I mean, okay, so you didn't read it. Well, that's irresponsible since this was the biggest story of the day. Are you not? You get clippings every morning. In the legislature and at City Hall, you get your clippings every morning. It's the first thing you generally do from staff get up early. They provide you with all the latest news. You didn't read it is not a good excuse. And then he didn't. He seemed to, as did the casino actually, saying, "Well, that was a long time ago. We can't look back and plan for the future or whatever." I'm thinking that's exactly what you do. We have made mistakes. We need to start talking about solutions. And I think you and I were saying before this. There's a really simple solution, Premier. Go back down. Take that $500 bet and get her down. I mean, what is going on? Just even if it's not to 25, take it to 100.
Literally yesterday.
It's the simplest solution. Who doesn't think that besides you? Everybody.
Well, literally
we're all
yesterday I
thinking the same
composed a tweet before I even knew John Horgan's reaction. I composed a tweet yesterday that said, I am waiting now for the announcement from our government to reduce the maximum bet allowable at casinos. And I hovered over it. And I ended up deleting it. And I don't know why. I just thought, it's going to happen. Why would I be sort of snark or whatever?
Well, obviously the challenge is they're addicted to this revenue. Every level of government in this province is addicted to it.
Even with money laundering, though?
And well, this is the problem. So we've identified a simple solution, potentially, that could, I mean, I think some of it's already because of other things that have come in once this was exposed. But that's a simple solution. The other solution, if you're not going to do that, is just do the commission. Just get her going. Can
you tell us what a commission would be, how it would work, and what the outcome would be should they find something specific? Or is it just another way of going, here's a whole bunch of money, do some investigating, then give a report way down the road, and then we look at the report, and then everybody goes, thanks, and then they put the report over there?
Quite often that's the case. I think it's up to the government power to decide how the commission is structured.
Right.
But generally, it's an investigation into what happened, and then comes with recommendations at the end of it. Saying,
so isn't the German report a commission? It's
kind of a commission, but this would be a public commission. So they would have, you'd come and testify, kind of like what we're seeing in the States with all the stuff going on. You'd have people and they would testify. But the problem and the concern and the worry and all these things is that a lot of lawyers would start saying, either they would represent or they would obfuscate. They would try to not have their people speak. They would, Great Canadian wouldn't come. Who would not come? Federal government. Who would not be there? Who would be willing to speak publicly?
Would the truth really come out?
Yeah.
Because it would get lawyered.
And how long would it take? Would it take a year, 2 years, 10 years?
And am I naive in this? Every time I've heard somebody argue against a commission, the argument is that all that does is make lawyers rich.
That seems to be the argument, but I think this public sentiment is this has to move forward, and I think we can't rely on Sam Cooper to keep doing all the work. I mean,
needs a raise.
Good job, but seriously, come on. And I think now that we've seen that neither party can either say they're innocent or that they're both guilty, that all that laundry is out there now. Launder, pardon the pun, but there's so much laundry. Yes, that it's time to give the people what they want. Do the commission and see what happens. But in the meantime, and the commission might come and say, recommendation is to reduce from $500 to $50 for each bet. I mean, we don't know.
Or take the baccarat tables out.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that the current government made a decision to get rid of the tolls on a bridge overnight. $200 million a year. It's like a year.
If you can do that, why can't you do a drastic change?
If this is going to have an impact on, because I know as having sat on my PAC, $5,000 a year we get from the PAC. I've been on the boards of arts groups, thousands of dollars a year, $60,000 a year on one arts group I sat on that they got from gambling, the casino, the gaming money, as we call it. That money will still, these groups rely on this money, and so the government has to understand this and create a different structure and find the money from somewhere else. And I don't think there's anybody in this province that I can think of that would say no to that. They would say, yeah, bite the bullet, do it, and let's move on.
Well, staying on the topic of money, but this time it's City Hall based. there was just a flurry on Twitter this week. Sarah Kirby-Young posting about how it looked as though there would be the motion passing to give relief to businesses and with regard to tax.
Yeah, this was quite interesting because this was a situation where we have 11 votes on the Vancouver City Council. We have 4 parties, and nobody quite knew where this was going to land. This was so the decision. The vote was about. It was a motion that she put forward, Sarah Kirby-Young, about, and she's NPA, to reduce the taxes to businesses by 2%, to the tax shift. Now, let me explain this a bit.
Okay, I need
businesses
you to explain
in
this.
Vancouver pay currently more than 4.5 times what residents pay in taxes. It's just, and up to till like 10 years ago, they were paying actually 7.5 times, and there was a tax shift. So the NPA in 2008 said, let's start a tax shift. This doesn't seem fair. Let's go 3% further down, get it down to and that took 3 years to do. And
when that shift happened, did it go to homeowners?
Yes, of course it does.
Okay, just
but
checking.
Of course, it's all about averaging and how much. But yeah, the basic shift goes to the residents. There was no backlash at that time about it. Nobody really. There was some brief, anger, but no, generally people didn't notice it in a big way. I always argued that it was not far enough. That certainly as a business owner myself, but also for businesses you talk to, and the way the economy was going, and the way that pricing of homes and our taxation in general was going, that we should continue the tax shift to 2.5%. I was arguing that. I put motions on the table to that effect. Failed miserably under Vision Vancouver, of course. Now we have a new council.
Because there's a new dynamic.
Yes. And we have 11 people. So Sarah puts the motion forward. It was an immediate reduction by 2%. So taking it to 2.5 times what the residents pay.
Right.
Again, that shift would go to
homeowners.
Now, I want to say though, there is a solution to take the stress off homeowners. Is like, let's reduce our costs at the same time at the city, so that we all pay less taxes. That's something the city needs to look at. And I think actually we're doing this to take the pressure off of, it actually puts the pressure on the government to find ways to reduce costs, because they know that the backlash might be there.
Well, homeowners are feeling the pain, man. It feels like every time we turn around, homeowners are being hit with something else, a new type of tax.
Yes.
Or I mean,
well, so are businesses though. So,
but that's
so this vote
the
went
4 time and 7 time. Like
it seems
those
unfair, but
numbers
it's
need to be
exactly.
fixed. But it was unanimous.
No, it wasn't.
Wasn't it?
No.
Oh, I thought it was.
Oh, no. It was. Her motion failed. It didn't get passed, and then I think it was only 3 votes in favor of that. There was an amendment. I think the amendment by Lisa to take it over 3 years to change it from immediate to 3 years, and then there was a battle over that for several hours. And what happened was the 3 Green Party supported it, and 3 of the NPA. 2 of the NPA voted against, the mayor voted against, and the COPE voted against, and 1 city voted against. So it was 6-5.
Really? Where did I hear unanimous?
No,
so if you were with me on hearing that this went through, like...
No, it was and it was a mix of all over the map. Because NPA, I was surprised that Melissa didn't support it.
Yeah, because they weren't all on side. That's unusual, is it?
Well, it's not unusual for the NPA. Certainly if you look at historically...
That sounds like a bit of a shot there, George.
Well, I think Vision brought in that whole slate voting as a team. That was not something NPA ever did.
I remember when I interviewed you and you said, I don't even know why we're having these discussions, because this was decided in an office behind the chambers before we even began. So at least there's that conversation in council chambers now, and that's a healthier...
Yeah, I mean, the NPA, the way it used to work, and when I speak to Gordon Price about this, the way it used to work when they were with Gordon Campbell and Philip Owen was that the mayor would have their caucus, their NPA caucus, and there would be discussion about something. They would bring a motion themselves, or maybe there's a report. They would talk about it, and the mayor would sit there and go, okay, I see where this is going with this, guys. Those 2 are going to vote against it. Those 2 are going to vote it. So then they'd say, then you have to go, okay, where will this land? Is it going to fail, or is it going to succeed? You sort of think the other people in the council. So before you get in there, you kind of have a good idea, and it's up to you, who may be fighting for this issue, to really fight for it and argue for it. But you kind of know going in, no surprises, right? Vision changed all that. There was never any surprises ever, because it was always slate
it's a Vision idea,
voting.
It's happening.
Yeah, they would always vote in favor of together at lockstep, like almost 99% of the time.
So this has been an issue for a long time. You referenced how it was something that you were fighting to get relief for small businesses. And we were talking about the number of the percentage of businesses in Vancouver that are small
Yeah.
businesses. I was blown away by this digit.
It's like, if depending on the number, the number I've always seen is 85%. Charles says even higher than that, but of our small businesses in Vancouver. So Vancouver's a small business town. And a lot of the focus in this debate was about retail and the challenges they have. And retail, of course, has challenges not necessarily from Walmart anymore. And that was an argument against lowering this because it would benefit Walmart. I'm thinking Walmart is the least of our worries for small business.
It is. Let me just pause you there, because it is one of the concerns that the larger mega businesses will be able to benefit huge from this.
Sure, like Amazon benefits. They're not even in Vancouver, but they deliver. They're the ones we have to worry about. How do we help small businesses immediately as a city? We've been fighting, trying to get the province to change the rules. There are ways they could change it called split assessments, all these complicated things you could do. Because the basic concept is in a building that these are the companies that are being hurt. Retail level, the building is zoned, it's a 2-story building, like the one we're sitting in right now, but it's zoned for 5 or 6 stories. And so the 2 offices or 2 people who are renting that building, because of the way taxes work and the way you have this thing called triple net. Triple net is you pay your rent, you pay your costs of operations in the building, and you pay your taxes. And the rent is fixed because you negotiate that rate for 5, 10 years. Costs of services like cleaning and things like that, they're fairly predictable. Taxation, though, completely unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, looks what Dulux Paint. I wrote an article about this 2 months ago. The best possible use tax that's crushing. I mean, they got a $285,000 tax bill at the paint shop because all of a sudden it was upzoned and you could put a 5-story, 6-story building there. Now that building's worth millions and millions, or that property's worth millions and millions if it was. And so to be built on, they just closed the doors.
Yeah, and depending on their, the way the city works. But and then the most famous one recently is the Chocolate Mousse on Robson Street. Same thing. Their taxes went like crazy.
Totally.
And they closed down.
And there are restaurants all over the place.
And restaurants, and then but offices, small businesses that have 5 or 6 employees, second floor.
So there's no real immediate fix for this.
There is one that's to reduce the taxes, to create that tax shift that the city could do immediately to give them give them something.
But then homeowners who are trying to do the affordability piece, which is hard enough. They've mortgaged themselves to their eyeballs, and then they get hit with the property tax bills that are going up, and it freaks everybody out when they hear it. And I get freaked out as a homeowner, and I live on a budget. And then, when I looked at the actual number, it's like $43 more a year.
I know, because there are a lot more residents.
But I'd rather have a walkability factor in my neighborhood and small businesses. Right. So when I think about it, my first reaction was, not another tax. Are you kidding me? And then the rational side of my brain was like, but I really want that little, one of my favorite restaurants just closed down without any notice, papered windows, and I was just like, I don't know what my neighborhood's like without that delicious little dumpling shop.
Yeah. And it's spreading the pain, right? So there's a lot more residents than there are businesses. So therefore, even though it's 4.5
to keep that one restaurant open.
Yes. And by the way, and then you think about what's happening. This will make us the most competitive city in the region as far as taxation goes, as far as the rate goes. We are now the cheapest city as far as the ratio between residents and businesses. So that's good.
Why doesn't anybody talk about that? Did you hear what George just said? Vancouver's the most expensive everything.
Now we have the least, well, it's all based on because you pay more taxes, our property is more expensive, but we have the biggest budget because of Vision Vancouver in the world.
We do. That's
and we have 43 communication staff. Did I mention that? Have I?
Cheers.
Right.
We need vodka.
I did it. I found a way.
43 communication staff.
But we also have, and this is we have Alberta now, who's going to try and
knocking on the door. For sure.
Saying to me as a business owner, "Hey, come to Alberta. You don't have PSD. We don't have all these taxes. We have lower property taxes. We have this."
They have Jason Kenney,
who
ran on a nice segue. Ran on a platform of the moment I become premier, within an hour of being sworn in, I will turn off the taps to British Columbia gas.
Yes.
So he was sworn in, and an hour after, he held a press conference where he said, well, we're not going to turn off the taps.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that politicians lie to get into office.
No, it's a campaign versus the being in office. And
I'm speaking on behalf of the
It's like
viewer.
being in opposition versus being in power. You see it with Horgan all the time.
Always seen that, yes.
You see that all the time. But this was a big promise. And he hasn't said he's not going to. What he said is, let's talk. Because obviously turning off the taps impacts his province too.
No, he did say, I'm not going to. because the clip ran that he said he was going to. And then he said,
But
just
then
to be clear, we're not turning off the taps. However, we have put in place the law that allows us to do so at any time should talks go awry, which I think is good politicking.
Now, let me understand the little lawsuits still that are going on about this. So, John Horgan is suing to stop the Trans Mountain pipeline.
Right.
But then he's also going to sue Alberta for stopping the pipeline from sending. So he's suing to stop it and
then he's
suing
suing
to start
them for
it.
stopping
So there's, I'm confused. So does he want the pipe? And then now we know that Kennedy is going to sue go after the federal government constitutionally on the latest bill related to pipelines and the flow of gas.
They're having conversations today and through this week. We'll definitely be covering this on UnSpun podcast on episode 18, which is next week. But you can follow along at UnSpun Podcast, where we always post the latest that we're thinking of. If you've got ideas for us as well, or something you want us to unspin for you, at UnSpun Podcast. Of course, you can follow this lovely human on Twitter as well. It is
human George _ Affleck.
Man, there's sound effects now. I'm at Jody Vance. Of course, you can find us at the Orca BC is their Twitter handle, but at theorca.ca online, you can find all of our columns and whatnot. I'll tell you about my column in a second, but I want to go from provincial politics and the pipeline to something that Andrew Weaver said this week.
Yes.
With regard to here's the solution, people. Here's how we get out of our gas guzzler.
To the gas prices, which is could be the downfall of this government, by the way. I think this is we talked about this last week. This is we're going to hit $2 a gallon, a liter soon.
I was in Langley yesterday, and I made a point of filling up because it was $1.59.3 in my Prius, in my hybrid. First time I almost hit $60 from an empty tank to filling up, but I could get an electric car. According to
magically
Andrew Weaver, all I need to do is take out a home equity loan.
Yes. Is this a plug for capitaldirect.ca?
Take out a home equity loan?
It was the most. Sometimes you say these things in private to your friends, like, but that was very, very. What are you doing? I mean, and first of all, people are so stretched in this province already, so especially your mortgages.
And I really like Dr. Weaver. I really do. As an interview, I find him very accessible. I don't find him guarded. Maybe he should be a little more guarded when it comes to this topic. Clearly, he's passionate about getting people into electric vehicles. Find a way to do it for people that can put them in a position to succeed. Putting people further in debt
I would,
in order to get into an electric vehicle is not the way to go. That answer applies to a very small piece of the human pie, the citizen pie. Like, I got absolutely lambasted on Twitter. We talked about this last week for just saying my answer to combating gas prices, and this was a number of years ago, was I was driving a Jeep. And it was $300 a month just to tool around town, and it was ridiculous. But I felt safe in it, and a little kid and whatever. And then my son's like, what's our carbon footprint? Because he studied it in school. And I was like, good point. So then I looked into getting a hybrid. And I made the change, and I really loved the vehicle, but I couldn't believe how much I loved going to the gas station once a month.
Right.
Like, once a month, because I don't drive a whole hell of a lot, but 840 kilometers on $50. Like, that to me was a huge savings. So I put that on Twitter. My solution was that I got absolutely attacked. Well, not everybody can afford.
They're not cheap. They're $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000. I mean, Elon Musk's.
What the electric cars are, but like a hybrid's not. I got attacked for that.
They get a line up for them. And also, I want to say that does the Green Party understand how electric cars work and how battery technology works?
Right. So you need to burn coal, or you need to use water, hydroelectricity.
Where does the actual stuff that comes in to make a battery come from? Oh, I think it comes from Alberta.
Right. And can you recycle them?
And what is the recycling process for those magical electric cars that Andrew Weaver is going to be co-signing loans for, I suppose, over the next 6
The home equity loan piece is just... Yeah, I have a feeling he's going to be doing the backpedal in a big way on that one. I think. I want to get into one more quick topic before we run out of time, and that's, can you explain to me, I asked you, we got to have a segment called George Explains to Jody. The VSB, the Vancouver School Board budget, how is that, how is it constructed? How is it doled out? Well, because I have a huge problem with seismic rebuilds and new builds of schools. that is, I can't not talk about it anymore. It's making me crazy. Outdoor covered areas are not in the new build school budgets.
In the new build, or so when they
seismically upgrade a school, they tear down.
So you had an existing
Elementary.
one.
Yeah, it has a huge.
And sometimes the schools are even smaller. They make them smaller too, because
which I don't necessarily have a problem with, because I think the space is better utilized inside
you
the
lose
school.
your. Well, I think I'm not to be. I mean, the province oversees all this money, right?
So I blame the province.
Well, the province is the school boards work at the pleasure of the province, as do municipal governments. But they really are they really have no power. The school boards, and
they have to hit
dole out the
budget
money,
yearly, right?
and they have their per student price.
Yeah.
That's why in Vancouver, our student population keeps going down, and we have this defiance of coming to terms with this. Obviously, parents, you can't close my school, but we have less and less kids in Vancouver.
So less and less budget.
So less and less budget, but you still have to operate all these same schools. There's money to refit and rebuild these schools is a whole separate budget, and it's way behind schedule because of all the politics of Patty Backus, don't get me started, that she was doing and fighting the Liberals. These buildings should have been built many, many years ago. Well, they weren't, and they delayed and they delayed. I had to go back again and around. So, but the design concept, I think the way they design them is based on the inside space, really. That's the money will pay for the inside space.
Right, but hello, you kick kids out of the school twice a day for the better part of an hour and a half, and it rains a lot here. I'm not sure if you've noticed.
I have not. I'm from Vancouver.
Unbelievable that there's not a and those play spaces, those covered play spaces, are used 24/7, 365. I mean, the one that I played at as a small child, my grandparents lived at Broadway and Collingwood. We'd go to Bayview Elementary on a rainy day and play underneath. All the kids in the neighborhood met there. We played ball hockey, we played soccer underneath the covered area. We need those types of spaces in our rainy rainforest of a rain city.
Can we then also build some soccer fields so I don't have to stand on a field on Saturday in November watching kids play soccer?
Love that. Yeah, you want something indoors?
Oh, buddy. My friends who have kids who play hockey are like, yeah, soccer kids.
Soccer.
You guys are crazy. I sit inside.
I went Little League baseball. At least
the seasons are good there, yes.
Pretty good.
Yes.
Pretty good.
So yes, I don't have an answer for you specifically to that, but I would say that it seems to make sense that there should be some outdoor covered area.
Thanks.
One of my favorite little playgrounds actually in Yaletown is underneath the bridge there, which I used to go with my kids when they're really small. And then one of those pouring rain days, you go, I want to get outside, but I don't want to stand in the rain. So there's this little playground right underneath the bridge. Great use of space, great use of a bridge.
More of that, please.
Yes.
Let's end on the positivity. Also, well, I do want to give a plug to my column this week. It's The Middle. It drops every Wednesday. This week I actually got the inspiration from Chef Ned Bell, whose wife, Kate Colley, is battling a really vicious form of breast cancer. She's a warrior. She's nailing it. But she had surgery, and Ned posted on social media over the weekend about hospital food. And of course, he's a chef. He's the Oceanwise chef at the aquarium, and he's like a champion of fresh and healthy food and responsible harvesting of seafood. And he was like, "Can we just talk about And it got me thinking, like, my experience with my loved ones in hospital recently has been, you just don't even want to lift the lid. And there have been some strides by the NDP government. Adrian Dix has been doing initiatives, and there's some places that have improved the cafeteria food in hospitals, but the patient food isn't. And that's in my column. Like, I want everybody.
The Jello's still good, though.
My middle is get a Vitamix. And frozen. Well, get industrial Vitamix.
Mass-produced food,
but you can, at least for the most critically needing nutrient people, not somebody who's going in to get day surgery and we got to upgrade the cookie to a smoothie, but somebody who's going in and fighting for their life. Nutrition
helps you heal.
Right.
Yes.
See, read my article. I'm a little bit passionate about it, and I love Ned Bell. And go Kate, Team Kate.
And go Jody for your plugging your column, your weekly column. Read it in the Orca.
That's episode 17. Episode 18, I will ask for the Patty Backus story.
There are many. Just look at Twitter. Thanks.